Hi, I'm Dr. Daniel Isgrigg. I'm a professor of history, and I also teach in a PhD program where I teach primarily research. What I want to do today is help you understand some practical advice for if you're preparing a research proposal for a PhD in theology. So, a PhD is a research degree that demonstrates students' ability to show their expertise in the field of study by offering original research on a topic in the field. So, when you're applying to a PhD program, they usually ask you to prepare a proposal of what topic that you're going to be engaging in as you begin this journey. And so, um, each program asks for something different, but here's some basic ideas of what a research proposal should do and some of the elements that you would want to include as you're applying to a program. So, a couple of preliminary things. First, most PhD programs assume a couple things before you enter. The first is that you actually know the field itself. So, if you're going in, for example, into the field of eschatology, like I did, or Pentecostal history, they assume that you have already mastered that field, and so your master's degree should introduce you to the conversations that you're going to be entering into at an expertise level in the PhD program. And so they expect that you should already know some of those conversations, or at least know the baseline of those conversations before you start your PhD program. That way, whenever you come in, you're not starting from zero. You're starting from an area of mastery, which is what should be the case already, which is a master's program should prepare you for a PhD. So what the proposal does then is demonstrates that level of information that you already know, because it sort of lines out the conversations that you're interested in going deeper into. And so the research proposal then is a very important tool that helps the PhD committee to assess your readiness for the program. Now, you don't have to know everything in order to do that, but they do want to see that you've already begun to do research on a topic that would be potential for the program. And a lot of times that's contingent upon the program's emphases and things like that. So, what does a proposal do? Well, first, it clearly proposes the basic idea or field of understanding that you're trying to do. And you don't know everything yet, but by setting out what the conversation is that you want to do research in and sort of your end goal, then it demonstrates that you're ready. Now, second, it articulates the specific research question that you're looking at. So before you can even have a thesis, you really need a good research question because a research question drives research. So you have to know what you're asking. And then third, you have to demonstrate that you have read the body of information. So your question is an informed question. Because if you don't know the field or you don't know the conversations, then it's hard to ask a research question that's not basic. And if they see basic skills or basic questions, then they know you're probably not prepared yet. So the first thing you need to do is just begin with your research question. Now, what I do with my students is I take them through this book called The Craft of Research, and this book is really it applies to all levels of theological education, but it's really helpful in the way that it helps to move somebody from just a topic like Pentecostal eschatology to an actual question of what are you trying to do? And they use a little template that I use with my students. It's called the 1, 2, 3 template of a research question. So it goes something like this. My thesis will explore the topic of, and then fill in the blank. This is usually your general field, or, like for example, Pentecostal eschatology. And then it goes number two, because I want to find out, and this is your research question. So, like for me, what was the relationship between Pentecostal eschatology and dispensationalism, particularly in the Assemblies of God? And number three, so that I can, and this is where your original contribution, this is where the research, what it'll do. And so here's an example from my thesis. My thesis will explore the subject of Pentecostal eschatology. Two, because I want to find out how the Assemblies of God develop their doctrines. Three, so that I can add to the conversation of the relationship between dispensational premillennialism and Pentecostal theology. So it demonstrates that I kind of know that this is a conversation going on, that there's this conversation about the relationship, and I'm adding a research question to find out more information in an area that somebody hasn't studied yet. So, all of our research at the PhD level is theoretical in nature, which means that you're trying to provide an explanation. And so your research question is looking for answers to provide an explanation or provide a new set of data or knowledge that the field itself does not know yet. So, the proposal then is an articulation of your topic. It's a discussion of the issues the scholars have discussed already that you are demonstrating you're aware of. And then it's a proposal of what it is that you think still needs to be researched and understood in order to gain more information into that area. So here are the elements of the proposal. First of all, you want to write your proposal like you would a paper. So you want it in academic narrative form. So you want paragraphs, not bullet points. You want to discuss things in conversation like you would um, in a paper that you would have academically. So that means it is appropriate to use footnotes for any conversations that you're having. So if you say scholars agree that this, then you want a footnote underneath that says what those scholars are. So it demonstrates that you understand the conversation, where those ideas are coming from, that you've read the literature, and so on and so forth. Now, proposals vary in length. They could be anywhere between 5 and 15 pages. It depends on what the program asks you for. Um, but usually not more than 15 to 20 um, plus the bibliography. So you don't want to overwrite the proposal. You want to just give a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to do. So in our program, here are the elements that we ask for in a proposal. And so I'll just walk you through them. These are fairly typical, but not universal. So it just really depends on the program what they ask you to do. So first of all, you need a good title. Now, you have to realize your title should be descriptive and not be like a book title. Like, don't do a title and a subtitle. I typically teach our students just do a descriptive title. For example, like exploring the epistemological and hermeneutical sources for socially prophetic theory, or the origin, development, and future assemblies of God eschatology. So something that's descriptive of what you're trying to do, but don't be fancy, and you don't need a title and a subtitle. I'll just keep it pretty basic. Second, you need an abstract, and the abstract is just a 150 word summary. Basically, you just want to say this study will propose blah 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 blah, and you describe the full study, what you know about it in a paragraph. So just a summary. So the summary should be the basic information of what the 5 to 15 pages is telling you. So I should be able to read the summary and know exactly what the rest of it's going to be about. Don't throw in a bunch of extra information in there. You want to keep that pretty concise, 100 to 150 words. Now, third, you want a good the first real body of the proposal is the introduction, and I suggest this is on a separate page after the abstract. The introduction introduces the topic, meaning what are some of the basic conversations in this field? And so again, this is demonstrating that you kind of know what's going on. So for example, for me, it was important for me to talk about how the Assemblies of God really placed a high emphasis on eschatology, and how scholars are beginning to question the relationship between dispensationalism and Pentecostal theology. So I would sort of lay that out as a basic conversation. You don't want to go overboard on this. You want to just sort of lay it out that this is the conversation that I'm entering. The next section is really your problems section, and this is where you identify the gap in literature. So this is just a mini literature review of the major studies, or what the assumptions were, and then what's missing that establishes that place for original research. You want to identify the problem, meaning scholars have said this, but the problem is they haven't done this. And that's where a PhD thesis is comes into play. These are the things that you will be researching yourself and proposing yourself. So that's your original contribution. So the purpose and statement of the problem articulates that gap in research that your study will fill. So in it, you want to just explore the basic research questions, So if this and this, then what will happen here? So if people are saying Pentecostal eschatology is problematic, and the Assemblies of God has a strong dispensational sort of framework, then what has happened in the AG, and how might that conversation help us to understand the bigger picture better? So that was kind of the main question that I had that was driving my research that I put into my proposal. So now you need some sort of thesis paragraph. Again, this is not it's not really a sentence. You don't want a thesis sentence. You want a thesis paragraph where you're just outlining a basic hypothesis. This is what you think is going on. And so your thesis is really sort of saying this study will argue that the relationship between this and this produced these kinds of results. And so even though you don't know that yet, that's what your basic hypothesis, your thesis for right now really is. And then you want to have an area of significance. Now, significance doesn't mean how great is this going to be. Significance just means where does this study fit and what will it do to the conversation? And so you want to talk about what's its significance to the scholars out there who are already in this field, your peers that you're reading. What's the significance to them? What will this do that other studies did not do? And so where is it going to fit in that full range of understandings that are out there? Now, the next thing that you want to do is your research design and methodology. Methodology is how is this going to take place? So methodology is the approach to which you're going to do your original research. So what this means, for example, for me, I was articulating that as a historical theology thesis, I was using the idea of doctrinal criticism, which traces how doctrines develop in the situation in which they emerge. So if methodology describes what sort of theoretical framework, what methodological framework are you coming from? What lens are you looking at that? And what is the actual design of the research? So for me, I was getting into primary sources, such as official doctrinal statements and um, uh, articulations of eschatology in their newspapers. So this is where you want to talk about that. So how are you going to do your research? What are you going to look into to bring out this original research? Research design and methodology is usually focused on primary sources, not secondary sources. Your secondary sources are your assumptions by which you build the problem, but your original research is where you do your actual argumentation. And then the next section, you're going to think about what sort of chapters your dissertation might have. So this is maybe just a list, like chapter 1 is introduction, chapter 2 literature review, chapter 3 I'm going to look at this particular thing, and then chapter 4 and then conclusions and so on and so forth. So just you want to try to frame that out. And then finally you want a bibliography. Now this is not just of works that you cited, which you do want those, but you want a bibliography of a good list of the major studies that you've consulted in order to come to your understanding. So this is kind of the field or the body of work that you've been reading in order to come up with this idea. So that just gives the committee an opportunity to see if you've really read everybody in that area, and if you really understand the topic that you're trying to propose. So as to wrap up here, so a research proposal is really important. It's really more for you than it is for the committee, because each of these elements are elements that you want to have a good handle on before you apply to a PhD program. As you're going through and preparing your PhD proposal, if this task does not is not flowing well, then maybe you need to take some time and do some more research so you can begin to get an idea of the area in which you want to write. So the proposal helps you to know you're ready, and then when you submit it, it helps the program to know you're ready. So it's really important that you take time to work on this. You don't throw it together in a weekend. There should be lots of research that goes on to this. I encourage you to read widely and talk to professors, talk to people in the field, email people that you're reading, and ask them for thoughts on your topic and really get yourself prepared. And so that when you put the proposal together and you apply to a program, you're ready and you will be much more productive whenever you begin the program because you'll have a good start and you'll know the area that you want to do research in. So I hope that helps. I have a blog, danieltheisgrigg.com, where I've blogged on many different things, including things like research proposals, preparing for a PhD program, the difference between a DMin and a PhD program, and other things. So I hope this was helpful to you today.